In the screen room, mostly in reclaim. Everybody wants to get more presses and increase their production, but they forget anytime you go to increase your production, new presses, now you have more screens. Well, if you can't cycle them through, if you can't reclaim them, then you have to buy more or create more. Well, then that bottleneck keeps getting bigger and bigger. So when you buy an automatic, you have to look at some things. One, when you're upgrading of any piece of equipment, what is your space? What's the electrical or water or whatever you need and air requirements? And what else is there? Do you have the capability to produce screens for screen printing for that extra press? Do you need to upgrade your exposing, your developing, your imaging area, your reclaiming, your remesh? So all that is there creates a bottleneck, but it's usually in the screen room is where I see the biggest bottleneck.
Oh, the biggest bottleneck, I'm going to go back to that again, is art approvals on a timely basis. In our business segment, 3 days is what our commitment to our customers is. And that's 3 days after art approvals and garments and all the paperwork is in. And many times on the second and third day, we're still waiting for an art approval that was sent out on the morning of the first day that for some reason they haven't gotten back to us. So we do a lot of, in our shop, we do a lot of what my staff calls customer maintenance or account maintenance. Sometimes they refer to it as babysitting. But we know that that's the business that we're in and that we have to do that. And if we don't get art approvals on a timely basis, things slow down. The second most proficient bottleneck, or the second most common bottleneck, has to do with screen making and not having screens when they're needed. And my philosophy when I work with people is always tomorrow's screens today. Your screen guy does not leave the shop until every screen for tomorrow's work is done and sitting staged. So the press operator never has the excuse that says, I don't have screens.
Well, it shifts is one thing. So that if you have to realize that if you take care of one thing, you'll get a bottleneck in a new place. And that's not a problem, that is just the process. So if you start making your screens faster and printing faster, then eventually you will not be able to do your art fast enough. And then if you do your art fast enough, your customer service people will not be able to keep up. I think that the bottleneck shifts is the main thing. The main bottleneck usually I see if I go into a shop is in setup time. Either people aren't trained or they don't have the right materials. I think that you have to have equipment that works, you have to have ink that's organized, you have to have screens that are right, or you can't set up quickly. I mean, all your tools have to be right, and then you can set up fast. And most people don't have all that stuff ready and don't focus enough on setup.
Usually when I go into a shop and consult, it has to do with, it starts with art and separations and screens. And to me, the bottleneck starts with art and separations and screens because it's done poorly here, poor there, on press, and now teardowns, redos, remakes. No one pays you for that stuff. And I see that as a bottleneck in production from my point of view. Now, maybe a production guy might see the bottleneck in ink mixing, in order staging, all of that. But I see it when I go out is that it always starts with bad decisions made somewhere, and people dictating wrong mesh counts, screw ups. Of course, it goes back to typical things, orders not written, I think everybody's now going to paperless, but there's still many shops who just write it on a note and it's got a thing and a few scribbles and we aren't sure what we did it last time. It's a reorder, and how do we do it last time? Did we flash twice? What was the color last time? No documentation. And being the Virgo, that drives me nuts. You've got to document every job. So I think that's a bottleneck because there's all these questions and mistakes. And
all mistakes are made in pre-press. If the job does not go together well, it was a problem in pre-press. If the wrong mesh was chosen, I don't really care whose fault it was. It happened in pre-press. It's something that you could have fixed, and you should learn from that. And most people don't. So they're not taking it and regurgitating and saying, ooh, let's not make sure that this never happens again. This is one of the basics of all lean manufacturing, is to learn and to improve the process. And that's through education. I don't believe that screen printers really teach people about what they're actually doing. I also don't think that people really care that much. They just came to do the job. They're there to make money. And you asked me this before. Are there people that really are interested in the work? Every once in a while you get somebody who really wants to learn about that. And then you take them to the library and they go, oh man, I had no idea you were going to take me to the library and expect me to read books. I thought you'd just give me a few tips. Because everybody wants the little pill to take, and there's no magic involved. Repeatable procedures, and then when people step out of that procedure, or they know, we've never done this sort of work before, we'd better check into this before we get to the press. Because the press is the most expensive piece of equipment in the shop. And if it's not running for the 435 minutes every single day, you're not going to make money. A screen maker that is behind is going to cost us money, because if you're waiting for screens, every minute costs you, let's say, 6 to 7 to 8 shirts on an automatic press. And that's just money that's going up in smoke. And people have to actually believe that they can do their work faster. This is, again, another principle of lean manufacturing, that once you get comfortable, take away some resources, reduce the time, try and compress the time. People will grumble, and then they'll figure out a way to do it. Without the pressure, the time pressure, or compression of the problem. People need pressure to get things done, otherwise everyone becomes complacent.
So the biggest bottleneck is not having the next job ready with all the inks and all the screens and all the squeegees, etc. Guy who will be here, Samir from a shop called ETF out of Istanbul, they sample on an automatic. When it's a complex job, they have an automatic only for that. It's not even close to a dryer and only has one open station. They don't even have a flash attached to it. They actually wheel it in to flash and then move it away. They supply their printers with all the details to do that job, and they're doing it for major companies. They do not have to have approval if they've matched the sample, okay? And they have a full rundown on that. I think it's the best production shop I've ever worked with. So just to give you an idea, they are a vertical shop. They make their own garments other than dyeing. They have 8 automatics. When they're not busy, super busy, they can do 25,000 shirts in a shift, which is 450 an hour. That includes setup and breakdown time. Okay, everything is on a card, everything is there. When they're busy, that number jumps to 35,000 a shift, so that's 550 an hour. That includes setup and breakdown. That's monstrous. And the reason they can do it is they have everything prepared in advance. The inks, the screens, the whole history to get that job done. They just put it together the right way. And I think that's what a lot of companies are missing, is you're doing your testing once you have the job on. You don't even have it worked out yet. And even if you were going to sample on a manual, you sample on a manual the way you would run your automatic. So if it's 1 stroke on your automatic, then it shouldn't be more than 1 stroke on your manual, other than your underlay. You may need a double stroke there. Outside of that, no, it's a 1 stroke deal.